afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Orr, and I'm the Executive Director of the UK and Ireland Spill Association. If I could just ask you to mute so that everybody gets a clear message and we don't hear any background noise, that would be grand. Well, it's sunny in England, in my part of England, but I understand it's really snowy in other parts of the United Kingdom. But for those of you who are joining in Europe, I also believe it's really, really cold, and the beast from east has captured us all. As Mark reminded me yesterday, we've got a low pressure system coming in, so we'll soon have the pests from the west. But wherever you are in the world, I hope you're all well and that you're surviving the latest wave of COVID and all the rest of it. Our thoughts are with everybody. So what I wanted to do is to introduce our first knowledge-based lecture, and the goal is to run a series of knowledge-based lectures throughout the year, which really shares our members' world-leading knowledge and enables it to be found, accessed and shared. And as a result, it enables knowledge within our community to be increased. And we certainly believe that knowledge has to be shared so that people can challenge it, they can improve it, and that it increases constantly. So what we hope to do is, over time, that this will become a place where those involved or interested in spill response may come to inquire, increase their knowledge, understand what good looks like so that they can work more safely, be compliant with the relevant legislation, and deliver a better service. And we believe that by creating a knowledge base, that is served. And the knowledge base isn't necessarily exclusive to what we create in UK Spill, but it will generally be our members' knowledge which is being shared. So how do you find it? Well, you can't find it yet because we haven't done all the webinars, but basically we're going to be doing 10 marine knowledge-based webinars in 2021. We will be running articles. Some of them will come out of the will come out of our knowledge-based lectures, but some of them will also be supplementary to our knowledge-based lectures. So they may well be case studies which bring together some of the strands that we'll cover in our knowledge-based webinars. They will all be found on our website, which is under revolution at the moment and will appear later this month. And you'll be in there. There'll be a section called Knowledge Base where you'll be able to access that information. If you go to our existing site, ukspill.org, you won't find a lot on there yet, partly because we're putting our energy into redeveloping and launching a new website, which will be accessed through UK Spill if that's what your bookmark is. But it will then it would also change its name to UK EIRE, which is another word for Ireland, Spill, which represents, the merged organization that we're now in. So that's coming soon. Now, obviously, a lot of you follow our LinkedIn feed, and we're lucky to have over 1,000 followers. That's growing quickly. So make sure you follow us on LinkedIn so that you're getting the updates as we put updates up there. So our knowledge-based series, these are some. We've got marine booms, which is coming next week. We've got absorbents, which is coming in March. Dispersants in April. Temporary storage tanks in May. We're covering also, and we will then carry on this marine knowledge series, and we're working out the program for the rest of the year at the moment. Other webinars which might be of interest to you is we're doing one on marine plastic pollution, what is being done and by whom, and that's on the 10th of March. We're talking with various parties involved in the Wakashio cleanup, and we will be doing a Wakashio update and following the story of the cleanup, how Polyeco and initially Le Flotte Pollution actually dealt with the initial response and how Polyeco then executed the cleanup. And we should be having input from Polyeco based in Mauritius on that. We're just organising the dates with them at the moment and some other parties. So that's going to be that will be a really interesting webinar, and we'll put that on LinkedIn, and we'll obviously promote it to the website. And everyone who's come to our webinars will get email with the details of that. So there's lots coming up. Okay, so knowledge base First one, Skimmers. Our speakers to this afternoon are Mark van der Zwan from Zwanny. Mark has got a lot of experience. He's worked with Vicoma, he's worked with DESME, he's worked with a number of different organizations over his career. I'm sure he must look younger than he is, because he's packed a lot of experience into what looks like a very short life. But being a Dutchman, I'm sure he's looked after himself well.
Wow,
so he has decided to go off on his own, and he set up a company called Zwanny, which primarily is a distributor for equipment, but he also gets involved in waste management, and he provides spill kits to lots of organizations. So that's Mark. The other speaker you're going to hear from is Gareth McCorkill. He was a response manager within, a senior response manager within Ambipar. Gareth has got a lot of experience. He was in the Merchant Navy, in the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, which are the Merchant Navy vessels that support our Royal Navy. He's worked for OSRL, he's worked for Secor, NRC, he's worked out in Russia and in various other environments. So you have two gentlemen with a huge amount of experience. So what I'm going to do is unshare my screen and allow Mark to dazzle you with his youthful good looks and, of course, his mine of knowledge. So that's enough from me. Over to you, Mark.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Mark. Let's find my little screen, and hopefully it is going to work. And I think we're getting somewhere. So that's all good. Well, thank you obviously for your time for starters. And it's something new that we're going to start. And next slideshow. Here we go. And we'll start from the beginning. I hope everybody can see it. And yeah, my apologies if it's all knowledge that people already know, but nevertheless, there might be bits there you think, okay, I never knew that, never thought about that. Obviously, my task is to tell you a little bit about skimmers. What is a skimmer? How do they work? And what they can be used for. And as I said, it's a little bit back to basics, really, as such. Then I will have to. Right, what is a skimmer? Skimmer is a mechanical product that's used for the recovery of obviously, well, oils, but it also can be used on industrial applications to collect hydrocarbons and other oils like palm oil or even duckweed. The majority of skimmers can be collected between 92 and 98% of hydrocarbons and other oils that have a very low water content. Each type of skimmer will have to work with a pump. Again, this might be all knowledge to you guys, but it is nevertheless, it's something that I have to and like to point out to yourselves. A skimmer can be used normally in marine applications and normally would be used with a boom. However, it is obviously a critical piece if it's used in marine. If it's for industry, which I'll come to a little bit later, you'll probably see that industrial skimmers don't really sometimes need a boom. They can work on their own. One thing you have to keep in mind as well, when you use a skimmer, where does the oil that you recover go? And that is just something to think about. That's what I'm going to say at this stage. I mean, the skimmer basically, how does it operate? Well, they can operate a number of ways, namely, you got ship hydraulics, whereby the hydraulic power from an engine will create hydraulic power to operate the skimmer. It's mainly from the gears from an hydraulic engine on board of a ship. You got a diesel hydraulic power pack, which is a classic scenario really. And obviously a number of different power units, stroke power packs would be used to create different KWs. And depending on the size of the skimmer, how it's actually going to be used and what for. For industrial use, again, is really sometimes pneumatic, and it's ideal because a lot of heavy industries, the likes of the steelworks, some of the chemical industries, will have pneumatic power on site, and it's just a matter of actually plugging it in, and the skimmer will work together with the pump and do its work. You also got the option of electrical. Again, that will mainly be in industrial applications. Whereby the skimmer is just plugged in the mains and does the work that the skimmer has to do. In this background picture, you'll probably see like a flat half moon. Well, there's actually basically a suction skimmer That's be used by pump power, and it can be used with vacuum trucks. So it's a very simple device. Basically, you connect it to a hose, and the hose is connected to a pump, or the hose is connected to a vacuum truck, and it will actually take out the skimming. Specifically in the waste management, people are now moving away from the idea of I'm going to clean a particular company's environment, and we just actually take out a lot of the water. But this is actually a preventative measurement as such, like, because it will only take out the oil and actually hardly any water. So it saves the end customer in the long run a bit of money as well, and it gives a few brownie points with the customer. Skimmers, on the whole, there are two types of business sectors that the skimmer can be put into. And really, that can be divided again into three little subsections. You obviously got marine skimmers, which are near shore, in the beach, port, marinas, those types of locations. You got offshore. These are mainly used on board of vessels or on oil rigs. And you got skimmers that can be used for, well, tropical or non-tropical areas like the Arctic or ice conditions. On the other side of the scale, you will have the likes of industrial skimmers and basically industrial applications where oils are used. Again, as I said, the likes of the steelworks, the likes of the refineries, these type of areas and such like. But there's also the inland use, and that's actually on a small scale, the likes of the canals, rivers, streams, ditches, and lakes, basically. But it's really for inland and fresh water as such. Basically, marine skimmers, what type of oil the skimmer is going to be used for, from diesel to crude oil, each skimmer capacity. The most common type of skimmers are used in ports, near shore beaches, and will skim about 50 cubic meter an hour. That's the big range of skimmers that are actually on the market. And they can be put into different segments again. You got the ophilic skimmers, which are actually, it's a mix of the option of a brush, disc, or drum model. You got weir skimmers, which is actually a floating ring with a weir lip with options of adding a brush bank. Weir lip is basically what somebody told me in the time being on what used to work at Vicoma, a bucket in the water. And it is really, it's a bucket, but obviously the oil goes over the weir lip and it is actually, well, it's taken away. You have got another skimmer in the market, actually called mop skimmers. And mops are basically strands of PTFE on bands, and they collect the oil when moving through water. And the oil is squeezed out inside the skimmer by rollers. And that's obviously the oil, again, is recovered. I used the mop skimmer in Israel, and they used it actually in the caboose in a big lake full of whey milk. In my DESME time, and basically what they did in Israel was actually recycle completely this whey that came from the mountain, but actually collecting with a mop skimmer the little particles of cream that was left, and that was actually used in pet food, and the rest of the water was actually used to irrigate the land. Suction skimmers, they can be, say, directly added to a hose and connected to a pump or vacuum truck. So it's ideal for some of the big waste companies to actually have a small suction skimmer on board of the vehicles, because it's another tool that they can use and offer to the end customer as such. There is also, yeah, it is sort of, it's another section. It's the beach rock cleaner skimmer. And basically they will have to work on hydraulics 9 out of 10 times, and they'll need a pump obviously as well. Again, if there are hydraulics on a DISAP, then they could work on a DISAP vacuum truck. In fact, we got one of those units here in stock in South Wales. But also, if you have got very rocky, beachy areas, and it is an ideal little piece of kit to work with and to use. Just to show you, it's the Lamore Minimax 25 skimmer in use. It's an ophilic brush skimmer, but obviously disc and drum options are available as well. The big advantage of it, actually, it's very easy to change over. So in a matter of, I would say, less than 5 minutes, you can actually change over from disc to drum or to brush in that respect. Ironically, Lamore was actually one of the inventors of the brush skimmers in the 80s, but that's another subject for another time. This little skimmer here will do 27 ton an hour and can be used in, well, diesel, with the diesel hydraulic power pack. There is a new version available as well in pneumatic, and that's something that's very, very new. But to show you how it works, and switching off the sounds, unfortunately it's come out again, the sound, so my apologies for that. But it gives you an idea. Actually, the skimmer is actually in a tank, and the oil is actually collected by the skimmer turning around, dipping itself in the oil, and scraping it off. On the bottom, the oil comes into a trough, and on the bottom of the trough, there's actually a hose that is connected to the pump, and the pump will take the oil away from the skimmer. And if I just move on to the next slide, we also got the suction skimmer, which is actually a manta ray, which I showed earlier in the picture. And that's again used on inland spills. This is actually filmed a while back in Australia on a little brook, and it is basically well, dragged through the water, as you can see. And well, it's even somebody with a mop helping actually cleaning up the spill that actually was there. We also got the micro weir skimmer, or weir skimmer. We were asked by the Department of Environment to supply them a number of the micro weir skimmers from Foilex. And they said, okay, we want to have them commissioned. We want to have them tested. And, you know, what do we use it on? And I have said, well, your Department of Environment, when I was in the Middle East, we actually used oil, and it worked well with oil, but being environmental department, I don't think that is a very good idea. So I said in the Baltic, on the various exercises that we did, we used popcorn. If not in Holland, we used turf. So they went to the local hardware store, B&Q, and came back with a big bag of sawdust, and used that actually on the testing of the skimmer. And to give you an idea, this is how it looks like. And you can see the skimmer is actually in the water and is actually taken out. In this case, okay, it's sawdust, but it will also take out oil if it's used in an oil application. This is although the micro weir skimmer, but a weir skimmer itself, they can go up to, well, 70 ton an hour. Some even can go larger in that respect. But it just gives you an idea how it actually, well, works as such. Ironically, with also some absorbent booms from one of the other manufacturers that is also present here in the background. As I said, there is also the likes of the rock cleaner, ideal for skimming to be used on crude oil, heavy fuel oil or sludge in beaches, shore or rock areas. And to give you an example how it actually looks like, it's a nice piece of kit really to have, and it will do what it says on the label. My apologies, having a sip of tea. It's used on a spill in, I believe it was in the Middle East. And as you can see, it's just crude oil that it's actually been able to take up. This is connected to obviously a hose stroke vacuum unit as such. Like, it's an ideal, nice piece of kit to have. Although it's used in heavy crude, but it will also be able to use obviously in lighter oils and such like if needed. Marine skimmers. I mean, obviously, I just touched on smaller than 50 ton an hour. Obviously, we go much bigger. And there are a number of marine skimmers that be used in conjunction with a crane or from land, in most cases, used on board of a vessel at sea. These can be put in a number of segments again in brush chain type or sweep cassette, weir skimmers, mop skimmers, and bucket types. And the likes of, well, basically the brush chain type. This is also the likes of cassette units that are actually connected to a vessel or on board of a vessel in the moon pool, but I haven't really touched on that as such because it's a little bit special. We can do it, don't get me wrong. Skimmers to be used on the bow, on the stern of the vessel, on the side. But obviously the same principle actually counts with the brush skimmer that is actually used, which is a brush chain type as such like. This is, for example, the Lamore LFF100, and it's ideal piece of kit because it can be used for including wetted crude. It has got heated scrapers for Arctic conditions, and the enhanced recovery due to the brush rotation in the fact that it actually can go both ways. So that's, it never is going to clog up because of that main reason of such like. Ideal for wave conditioning and characters in very heavy seas, specifically in the Arctic and the North Pole regions. I'm thinking of maybe Alaska, but even I'm thinking of Siberia, and I'm thinking even, well, in the Antarctic, in the south part. Obviously, it has got effective thrusters for mobility use for a U or J sweep configuration with 2 vessels. Or even 3 if needed. It has a single lifting point. A thing that comes out with a lot of time skimmers, they have got various lifting points, but this is just one single, so it's ideal to put into a particular situation. Enhanced oil flow due to special design and robust and durable aluminium construction. And it will have obviously a very long lifespan as such like. You got larger rear skimmers. This is just one particular one that does 50 ton an hour plus. In fact, it does 70 ton an hour. There are others that are in the market as well that do a little bit more, as I said. They're easy to use with a crane. Everyone comes with a self-adjusting rear lip. Very portable because it's just one piece of kit that you put into the water with a crane and take it out again. And it's quick and easy to clean. So it has got a lot of plus points because it's the simplicity of it. But it is, obviously, it is another option, another tool in the box of skimmers as such. There is also the likes of larger mop skimmers, and they again do 50 ton an hour plus, and pump is built in the skimmer, and you might be able to see it on the yellow picture. You might see that. I've seen the picture before. And actually in there you'll have rollers, and the rollers will actually squeeze the oil out. And the oil comes into a trough, a bit like the smaller skimmers we've seen a little bit earlier. And you can see the hoses on board. So the hose in the middle between the mops, should we say, that is actually the discharge hose. For all the oil that is collected, that will probably go into the tank of the vessel. And the other, well, like a hose, you see, that's actually hydraulic power. So it's actually used on hydraulics on the ship. So it'll be ship hydraulics that's actually powering this particular unit on board of the vessel. And again, it can be used in a number of wave conditions, and it's ideal for the likes of ice because it's a simple concept as such. There are some other larger skimmers as well, the bucket skimmer, and some of your good salmons might not have seen these before. It's a Lamore product, ideal. It's a single operator unit. It actually is on the end of a boom, and basically it's hydraulically operated and sits in the bucket of a boom or of an excavator, and can be used as a very heavy oil skimmer, really, for well, from light to bitumen and tar. So it's really the heavy stuff they actually specialize in, and as such like. It's a steel construction, and it doesn't have any effect to debris because it'll just keep on going round and take it out. It does about 115 ton an hour, so it's quite a lot of oil that can be taken up with that. And this is also can be used on land, not just on the water as such. We got obviously industrial skimmers as well. This is the little industrial ophelic skimmer. There's a range of them, and this particular skimmer, I'll tell you in a minute a little story. Industrial skimmers, the name suggests it all. It's used for industry, and as I said, refineries, heavy industry, waste treatment plants, power stations, and factories. These types of skimmers will be used with a mix of oil types: heavy fuel, light fuel, tramp oils, waste oils, and they can again be put in little segments. The ophelic skimmers, again, like the marine sector, can go up to 50 ton an hour, and these are ideal for these type of applications. These types can be used in zoned areas in a refinery, providing the power is outside the zone. These skimmers can be used with a pneumatic power option as well, or electric power as an option. We did it in one of the refineries not long ago. They actually used a diesel hydraulic barrel pack, but the hydraulic hoses were about 50 meters long to stand actually outside the zone area. And the skimmer was actually used in the zone area and worked really, really well. This was actually a Lamore Minimax 12, which I'll show you in a minute. Mop skimmers can be used as well, ideal for going down pits and drains. You got smaller weir skimmers with and without the arms, and suction skimmers, which I mentioned earlier as well. And you got belt skimmers, and they're used for little sumps. You're looking at, for example, the automotive industry. They all have the likes of a little sump on the bottom of a machine, and maybe about 10 liters oil, 20 liters oil in there, and the little skimmer will just happily go around and take it out, basically. This is one of the, well, basically brush skimmers we actually used not long ago in one of the steelworks. It's an Ophelic brush skimmer from Marklin. And again, it has the interchange option of disc, drum, such like. And it's, again, very easy to change. This will do 12 ton an hour and use with a diesel hydraulic barrel pack. The cover we opened to show how much oil is actually taken out. And hopefully it will work without the sound, because the sound is very, very loud because of the sound of diesel hydraulic power pack in use. But you can see here, no boom is needed, as I mentioned, and this actually is going around and taking out the oil happily. The oil has actually been recycled by the particular steelworks, and it's an ideal piece of kit, being aluminium as well. It is actually very, very robust to use as such, and as you can see, it's rather thickish goo, tramp oil that actually comes from the canals that they got in the steelworks. I mean, what they do is when they, all the machines and all the cooling of the steel coils when they're made is actually, water has been put on that. So there's oil dripping from that. And that is actually goes into various canals eventually, and then it's taken out. This is obviously diesel hydraulic, but we also got a number of pneumatic units in the steelworks working, and they're working very well. And move on. This is another little skimmer for industrial applications. This is the Lamore Minimax 12. What happened was there was an old site here in South Wales where the refinery was built, BP Landasi. And we were contacted by one of the contractors on site who were actually cleaning the sites from the residue of oils and areas like that. I gone to site and they had just lakes of oil, and they said we clean it on the Friday, and Monday we come back, it's all come back in the ground. Well, what happened in the time being, people, this is about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the refinery is gone now, the house has been built there, but before that, in 1905, when the refinery was opened till about the 1990s, people just actually left the valves open and left pipework open, and well, it's leaking out oil, don't worry about it, it'll go in the ground. Well, it's all coming out now. And we use this little Minimax 12 skimmer there, and in one of the ponds they had there, it's, well, this 12 ton an hour. I was actually filling up an IBC in half an hour with full of heavy fuel oil that actually came from the ground. And it's a very small, compact, nice piece of kit, really. And you can see it here actually taking out the oil. I did put the cover down, but it gives you a bit of an idea of how the oil is working in this little inland industrial civil engineering application, really. And again, that's a widely available product from us. As such, we sell quite a few of these. We also got industrial skimmers, the mop type, as I said, and they're ideal for pits and for very, very, deep down, basically. Obviously, electric power can be used from site, and it'll collect a mix of the water and oils. As you can see, it just goes down and comes up again as such. Weir skimmers, I mentioned, for industry. We use these, there's a little Foilex mini skimmer. medium wear skimmer. They've actually used them in the milk industry, the dairy industry in Sweden. And I don't have the arms, but actually it's actually working in a various number of ponds in this factory and taking out cream stroke oily material and actually been taken away as such. Like it's a self-adjusting bellow, and so it actually goes up and down like that. The pump is connected to actually the skimmer, and it will regulate itself, the flow of the skimmer. And it's mainly used on a fixed installation as such. We got the suction skimmers. For example, here we got the manta ray again. There are a number of options in the market of these type of skimmers. The Lamore manta ray is the only skimmer that, to my knowledge, that doesn't clog up. Reason being is because obviously it can open like that. It splits up. You got little hooks on the side, and any debris, as in leaves or little branches or twigs, actually can just be taken out by hand. And then obviously it closes up again, and it will function as such. It's again, it's an ideal little piece of kit and handy to use with a pump stroke vacuum truck as such. As I said earlier as well, you have got the likes of industrial skimmers, little belt skimmers, and they're used for sumps and tanks and small industrial applications, and even for labs. And they go round and round, and the belts are about that big, sometimes about that if you have two onto each other, next to each other. And they do very small quantity, 2 to 5 liters an hour. So it's very small, but it's effective for its operation. And obviously they're all electrically operated via the mains from the factory. Well, thank you for your time. Hopefully this has been a little bit of use, this information, and it's obviously available to give you a bit of an understanding what skimmers are used for. I mean, as I said, you normally would have a boom if it's in a marine application, to go into conjunction with a skimmer, but it is obviously specifically skimmers that we discussed. There are obviously other skimmers that I haven't touched on. There are some new developments taking place from Lamore, for example, some bigger industrial skimmers. There is obviously from a company I used to work for Desmi, which I haven't mentioned. It's a very special type of skimmer. It's a belt-based skimmer, but it's available to the market. And obviously we do have got these, what I showed you, available and the standard products. And if any questions, please feel free to contact us. And our website is down there, and it gives you a bit of more idea. And any questions afterwards as well, I'm happy to discuss. And I'll probably have to pass you over now to Gareth, so you can enjoy the lovely looks from Cornwall, from South Wales to Cornwall, basically.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for your time. Good. Mark, can you confirm that you stopped sharing?
I have, yes.
Oh, super.
There we go. You're on, Gareth.
Sorry?
You're all good to go, Gareth.
Oh, splendid. Thank you very much, Mark. So thank you very much to the other Mark for his presentation. It's very, very useful. Thank you. It covered quite a lot of what I'm going to talk about as well, but I'm going to go into more the selection. How do you select the skimmer for your particular purpose? And you're obviously looking at the different types of skimmers, which one's going to work best for you. And what you've got to take into account with that one is the weathering of the oil, how long it's been in the elements, and how much of the lighter ends have been evaporated off, which affects the viscosity. So affecting the viscosity will depend on which skimmer you're going to have. You also have to think about the size of skimmer. So if you've got plenty of draft, you're out in the middle of the ocean, you've got booms and you've got skimmer, you can get a big old skimmer and you can recover it, cover loads per hour. That's fantastic. But you've also got to think about where that's going. So if you've got a temporary storage, say 25-ton bladder, which is the picture in the top left-hand corner there, then you've got to think about where that bladder's going. Have you got more bladders? My personal preference is to pump it into a barge or into the ship's tanks, because it's nice and secure in there, if possible, if we're allowed to. The other things you've got to look at is depending on the size of the skimmer, your lifting appliances that are available to you, i.e. You need power packs. Some of the skimmers are particularly heavy, so it's quite difficult. So I'm just going to have a quick brief look at the different types of skimmers, because obviously Mark's already gone through most of these, but as you can see, the different types and different variations of oilophilic. Oilophilic meaning oil loving, so the oil sticks to it, and they are naturally then hydrophobic as well, which means they're water repelling, which increases their oil content as opposed to the water content. So they're particularly more efficient. Lots of people have, well, I'm a big fan of the rope mop. Lots of people think that it's not so good, but I like using them in unison with another skimmer. So I was on a spill in a dockyard, in a dry dock actually, a filled dry dock, and we were using the rope mop to herd the oil and bring it back to a small Desme Minimax that we had there, skimming attached to a spate, and then into a temporary storage. So we were using it essentially as to herd the oil back to the skimmer. So I quite like them in those veins, and as has been pointed out to Mark before, downhole skimming is their forte basically, but also when there's lots of debris. So rope mops are good for debris. I've got a case study a bit later to show you as well. So the next ones that you've already had a little bit of a look at is the weir skimmer. Lots of different types, but essentially they all use the same idea of the oil-water interface, weiring the oil and as little water as possible into the sump and then pumped away. Obviously, you increase the wave, you increase the waves around it, and it increases the water content because of that. Oil-water interface isn't as steady, but also you must think that when oil is in the water, it has a calming effect on the water as well. So it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. With the weir skimmers, you also have the active skimmer. So there's a picture there of the active skimmer. The top left-hand one, you can see it as we're putting it into the speed sweep, and that's the bottom one of those is us training it over the back end, and the larger on the right hand is when it's actually up and operational, and you can just see the hoses in the back of that, which are the hydraulic and recovery hoses, which come back to the vessel. That's an active system. That's active system meaning that the boom actually contains the skimmer itself. So we're going to talk about the specialist skimming and booming options in another webinar, I believe. But they're good. My main problem with them is that you can't see the weir itself. It's quite difficult to see the oil-water interface at the back of the boom. So you have to keep on checking the actual the recovery of it. So it means stopping, checking the water content, and then fiddling around with the weir that's there, which is a little bit tricky. But if you're going to have it deployed for a long time, then that's all right. And so these are really, the weirs give you your greatest sort of span across light to heavy oil. So if I'm putting a equipment package together, I will put a weir skimmer in if you don't know what oil you're going to get. They cover a very wide, from light to heavy. once you know what oil you're going to get, mainly for exploration and things like that, then you can put a targeted skimmer in, like a disc brush drum, groove drum, for your light to mediums. And then if you're starting to get into the heavy stuff, then you start looking at mechanical skimmers and tooth disc, which are the Star System and the Sea Devil. The good thing with the Sea Devil is that you can have steam injection into it as well to heat the product up, so you can pump it. The big problem with that is as soon as it goes through the hoses, it starts cooling down, and then you can get blockages on the hoses. The other mechanical types are the belts that you can see there. That's the lovely Egmalap, which is a belt system. I think it was used on the Exxon Valdez, so it's got pedigree. And they're used, again, using the oilophilic properties of the oil, and it basically sticks to the belt. The belts also have sort of flaps on. It's like a conveyor belt, and that flicks it through down into the skip that you can see in the middle of the vessel there. And then when it gets properly solid, you're looking at clamshells. Again, that's closer to shore or on barges, and you're just literally scooping it up out of the water. The next option you have is vacuum. Vacuums are good from light to solid. So they're good for shoreline, very, very good for shoreline. What you've got there is, in those pictures, you've got mini vacs, and you've got a delta head manta ray that Mark was talking about earlier as well. They're really good for putting on the back of, attaching to suction tankers, and then you sort of cut out your middle pump as well. So, and your middle temporary storage. So it just goes straight into a vac tanker. You can also attach weir skimmers to vac tankers as well, which is quite good. Most of them come with lances, and as I say, they're pretty good from medium, from light to heavy. I always get advised not to use it on anything lighter than diesel, because you're then taking in the vapors into a pressurized cylinder, which is something that you don't really want to do with the escaping of the vapor. So just to put that all into sort of context, we've got a graph. So if anyone's done an MCA course or an ISO course, they'll recognize this graph of efficiency. And you're basically looking at a graph with the viscosity or the thickness of the product and the optimum efficiency. So you can see that the oilophilic has a very, very high efficiency on a reasonable range. But when you start getting into the heavier stuff, vacuums, the weir starts dropping off, but the mechanical starts coming into its own. So again, you're looking at your where you're going to be using the skimmer, the type of oil, how long it is going to be until you actually get time on top with the skimmer, so your weathering conditions, and how long has that spill been in the water. And that's kind of the main points that you're looking at for your skimmer selection. So there's not one skimmer that covers all of them, really. So it's a combination of them as well, including sorbents. Use sorbents to herd and bring the oil into the skimmer is also quite a good idea as well, as you can see from my case study, which I'll show you in a second. So the snags that I've got with skimmers personally is that the easier the skimmer, the better it is. The less moving parts, the more efficient and easier it is to train people how to use it. One bugbear is the QRCs or QCC connections. Having some kind of standardization for that would be great, as well as standardization for lifting, especially lifting. You know, some of the skimmers are pretty heavy. We need to start thinking about putting lifting certificates with that, and making them nice and easy to wipe clean and rehab for the next thing. So just a little case study I've got now of, I was on an exploration rig, and we were testing, And we had a drop in pressure from the well itself. The flame went out, and then we had a spurt of pressure, which put a slug of oil into the marine environment. Luckily, the preparedness of this rig was very, very good. It had boom going around all of the rig, apart from a 50-meter gap where vessels came in and out. And we had a spill vessel on standby with equipment and boom ready to react to this event. So the preparedness was very good, and that's the main thing about oil spill is the preparedness and being ready for and having the kit there on station essentially. So we had this slug of oil go in. The booms kept it contained, which was nice. The spill vessel came inside the boom and closed up after itself. And then we started positioning the spill vessel like a boom, basically. So we were looking at where the oil was drifting, and we positioned the vessel on the corner of the rig in the drift pattern of the oil to act as sort of like an apex or a solid boom, if you like. We then use sweeps, absorbent sweeps, to sweep that into the corral area, and started recovering it with a foxtail. And the recovery was very good. There was also a lot of floating debris there, seagrass, which actually acted as a very nice natural absorbent, which we picked up. Obviously, the waste was kind of high, but other than the already floating debris, there was minimal impact to the environment, which was great. The concentration of oil to water was very high with oil. You're looking around an 90 to 95% oil, which was nice. And that was all through the foxtail. No other skimmer was used, and through the natural collection, natural absorbance of the seagrass. And it was a very successful spill. It was very good, and that's using your absorbents, your vessels, and your knowledge and your prior planning to lessen the effect of the environment. I hope this has been interesting for everyone. Oh, there is one more slide, sorry. I just got to remind everyone that not all skimmers are pumps. This is a booming system, agreed, but it's also a skimmer. And this is the apex, it's the alpha of skimming in the marine environment, if you ask me. It is surpasses any boom and skimming, but we will do a session on specialist equipment another time. So thank you very much for your attention. Very kind of you. I will now try and stop sharing and pass you over to Mr. Orr. Thank you very much.
Gareth, thank you very much indeed. Right, I'll try and share my screen again. Oh, there we are. Okay, I've got a few questions which have popped up, which I'd be grateful if you guys could answer. Let me just find them again. Where's my chat gone? We had a question about ATEX rated equipment. Can you just clarify that one, Mark? Is ATEX,
yeah, sure.
Is it all ATEX equipment, or does it have to be manufactured to be specialist ATEX equipment?
No, well, what we have got in the range, I mean, a number of the ATEX there's ATEX skimmers available that we can offer. That's one thing. However, the Lamore is the only manufacturer who actually got a GTA a screw pump that is actually ATEX approved and ATEX certified. So yes, we have got that facility and that option that we can offer as such. If there is a demand for it, no problem, let us know, and then we can send a quote over.
I think Paul Rayner's on the call. You raised a point about skimmers, didn't you, Paul? Feel free to unmute if you're there.
Yes, good afternoon. Yeah, from our side, I mean, it was interesting on the ATEX question. So probably a really good subject for a future webinar as well, because ATEX is a whole thing on its own, and really important to understand what it really means and how you actually get certified to use that sort of equipment in those applications. I think what I'd like to add is, thank you very much to both the presenters. It's interesting there was a question came up about standards. I think it was Stuart had mentioned about standards, and I think you'd replied saying this was something we're looking at. And I think really important to say that, as UK SPIL, we're looking at, really having some UK standards that we can roll out rather than just adopting standards from another country. So I think really a good opportunity for UK SPIL is this and its membership to pull together on creating this set of standards.
Yeah, I think we feel it's important. I mean, in the UK, we've never really had standards as such. We've had loose standards for certain things which affect the work we do, but we do believe that now is the time that we need to create our own standards, which I'm talking to British Standards Institute about at the moment, and there is a good possibility that we will be able to create standards for certain marine equipment. Now, some of it may be based on similar standards which are abroad, but we do within the UK require our own set of standards, which will which will ensure that equipment is built to the right standard and is fit for purpose. There was another question which I think I've lost my chat bit. I don't know where that has gone, but which was raised from Gary in Chicago, I think it is. Gary, if you're there.
Yes, I'm here. I was wondering, oil spills don't always happen in nice, quiet water. How well do these? How well do these units work in the ocean in rough water? What's kind of the wave limits for functioning, and does this other new kind of Apex skimmer offer some hope in that?
Can I come in on that, if that's all right?
By all means.
Thanks very much. So the rule of thumb for boom deployment and skimmer deployment is you're looking at around a force 5 to 6 C wave state. So you're looking at around 25 knots of wind, and it's starting to get a little bit dangerous to put the booms out. Over that, you're looking at natural dispersion having quite a lot of action within the spill. So the wave height is less the height and more the wave frequency that you're looking at. And considering that the oil that you'd be using these skimmers on will flatten that out quite considerably. When I first went to sea, you had pilchard oil in the lifeboats to throw it over to calm the seas down so the splash didn't come into the lifeboats. Yeah. So you have the same kind of effect on the sea when you have an oil spill. So, but in answering your question, I would say that you've probably got a wavelength of about 2 meters that you would need for it to start having a severe detrimental effect on the performance of the skimmer. And me personally, as a mariner and as a spill response guy, I wouldn't be putting a skimmer out in that.
Good. There was one other question about the rate of recovery. I think in one of them one of the slides it mentioned that a skimmer will roughly recover approximately 90% of the oil. Maybe Mark, you want to touch on that? Is that that a general rule of thumb?
Yeah, sure. I mean, general rule of thumb is the majority of skimmers, if it is from the likes of Vacomas or Desmi or Lamore or even Elastic, I mean, the rule of thumb is anything between 90 and, well, 98%. Some of it is certified by companies, others isn't. But the rule of thumb is, I would say, generally what I put in my presentation, from 95, from 93 to about, I would say, 95, 97% oil, because it depends on what type of oil you're talking about, if it's going to be crude, if it's going to be light oil. So it's a very bit of a mystique, but obviously, as I say, some of the manufacturers actually have tested it and got certified testification that actually will pick up that amount of oil that it says on the label as such.
Yeah. And does the viscosity will depending on your choice of skimmer, will the viscosity influence that?
Yeah.
Yes, it will do actually. Yes, I mean very much so, because obviously if you've got crude oil, you might still take some. Some of the crude oil, depending what type of crude oil it is, it's going to be it's a very big tin of worms that you're opening here, because of all the types of crude oil. But I mean, what I've had in the Middle East and actually in Africa is mazout, and recovering mazout comes from Russia. It's a lovely crude type of oil. It's as thick as tar, and obviously when you actually try to recover that with a skimmer, you will actually pick up a lot of the oil and not much water. But if you have a diesel spill and you would actually use it on diesel, you will have a more water content picking up that way, because diesel is much lighter as such, even though the waves will actually break up the diesel, and Mother Nature will do a lot for it as well, because UV light will shine on the diesel spill and actually disperse it as well to a certain degree, because thank God Mother Nature is there to help with oil spills. That's all I can say on that one.
Good. I think that was all the questions. Does anybody have any other questions which they'd like to raise, or are we?
Can I just finish Gary's question about
the? Please do, Gary. Yeah.
Sorry. The current buster that I had a picture of beforehand, the big yellow monster, that is a skimmer, and what that does is it takes in the oil water mix and puts it through a funnel, and then allows that funneled oil to go through a kind of separation with some flaps. So what you're actually getting in the rear end of that current buster, so if you've got a current of about 6 knots outside of the current buster, you've got a 0 knot in the middle, so you can actually harvest the oil with this thing, and it's a skimmer, so you can then take it back to a mothership, for want of a better word, and pump the collection sack out. And the current buster 6 holds I think it's 90 tons, so you can get a pretty decent amount in it, and you can use it in heavier weather as well, because you're a single ship operation, so you can go for as long or as hard as you want, really. I hope that answers your question, Gary.
Yeah, that's very helpful. If I could ask a follow-on question, albeit somewhat different, I think it's still relevant. If we're in a saltwater environment, from the moment that oil hits the salt, as a combustion engineer, we're not very interested in that stuff. So what do they do with this oil after you've picked it up? Is it just incinerated someplace, or?
I mean, some of the oil, depending what it is, but depending on the spill. For example, when the Torrey Canyon happened, all the oil actually was recovered from the Torrey Canyon spill in 1968, and it's still on one of the Channel Islands in the UK, in an old mine shaft, and it's a big lake there, and so it's used that way. But on the other hand, normal circumstances, or sometimes circumstances, it's used for, in the recycling industry, as you say, it's incineration, but fuel to energy. So actually it goes to incineration, but actually feeds the grid, because it's been burned, and the burning is actually feeding the turbines that actually create electricity. That's one area. The other area, again, it depends on the recovery of the oil. It can go into a number of waste streams, as in, for example, in Spain, a lot of recycled oil or used oil is used in the marine industry, and that's actually made into marine grease. So it is, well, obviously people do try, and only the last couple of, I would say, last 10 years, try to actually be much more greener and using the type of recovered oil in various locations that they can, as in recovering, instead of just dumping it in a cave system or a mine
shaft on an island in the channel.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe in the Tasman Spirit, we know where the Torrey Canyon is.
Well, the RAF didn't.
No, exactly.
We've had a question which has come in on the use of skimmers in combination with bioremediation solutions. Right. So that perhaps incorporate biosurfactants. And is that commonly used, Gareth? That's probably more one for you.
Can I just come into the question before as well? I know on the Tasman Spirit they use some of the oil that they recovered before they put the surfactant, before they put dispersant on in roads. So they had lime ash, and they then used it in the macadam process of some of the roads. That was on the Tasman Spirit, I believe, in Karachi. But coming to the surfactant side of stuff and dispersants, if they're used, then essentially, as soon as you use dispersant, then all skimmers are useless.
Yeah.
It wasn't a dispersant, it was the surfactant question.
It was surfactants, really. It was more to do with surfactants.
Yeah.
Well, with dispersant and surfactants, they're essentially, as soon as you put anything on the oil, which is going to change its relationship with water, then you're changing its ability to be used in an oiliphilic way.
Yes.
So I can only assume that, yes, I have to admit my knowledge on surfactants isn't great. I was under the impression that dispersant is a hydrocarbon and a surfactant mix, therefore it's pretty much going to do the same thing. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
Okay, anybody, any other questions? Great. Well, I'd like to very much thank our speakers, Mark van der Zwanny and Gareth McCorkill of Ambipar for their time and putting together the presentation. Thank you very much indeed for all of you